Thank you very much, and thank you, Chip and Sally, for inviting me to be here. This is not my first AREI-AREDAY. I participated many, many years ago in AREI-AREDAY. Again, my name is Jerome Ringo. I'm the president and founder and chairman of Zoetic. Zoetic means for life. Zoetic Energy. A little bit about myself. I'm the former chairman of the National Wildlife Federation, Ranger Rick magazine, and the great work that we did at National Wildlife Productions, film and documentaries for Discovery Channel, Animal Planet. I'm also the former president of the Apollo Alliance. It was I took over in 2003 and left in 2010 and built it to be the largest coalition on clean energy in the world with 19 million members. I'm from Louisiana, and real exciting career. Have been attending COP conferences since Kyoto, went over and spent lots of time with Al Gore. I appear in Al Gore's documentary, An Inconvenient Truth, was part of the advisor on the Climate Alliance, spent 2 years teaching as a McCluskey Fellow at the School of Forestry and Environmental Studies at Yale University, and spent another 2 years at the Bren School of the Environment at the University of California, Santa Barbara. I'm currently on the board of directors of the EDF, Environmental Defense Fund, and just last week was appointed as the new Goodwill Ambassador to the Pan-African Parliament, representing all 54 countries of Africa and their relationships with the Americas. So I'm real excited. I'll be formally installed in Johannesburg in October. So I was real honored when Chip invited me back again. Chip is a longtime friend and excited about AREI-AREDAY. As I mentioned, I'm from Louisiana, have been sort of back and forth. I apologize. I got up many times doing the presentations. I was back on the phone with my family because I live on the coast of Louisiana, and we currently have a tropical storm that is threatening the coast of Louisiana as we speak. I'm an evacuee of Hurricane Katrina. I'm an evacuee of Hurricane Rita. I'm an evacuee of Hurricane Gustav. I'm an evacuee of Hurricane Ike. And that same year, I was in Florida traveling with the National Wildlife Federation doing presentations on the impact of sea level rise, and I was an evacuee then of Hurricane Wilma. So I promised my good friend Chip that once I finish this presentation, I will get out of Aspen so we don't have a hurricane to hit Aspen. But I'm real excited because all of my year in advocacy with National Wildlife and working with the many groups that I've worked with, after those years, I really wanted to turn that advocacy into action. I testified many, many times in Congress, worked very, very closely with members of Congress on the Keystone Pipeline and the tar sands, dealing with the tar sands of Canada and the adverse impacts that they were having on the environment and habitat and species in Canada, but wanted to do something tangible that I felt that could reduce CO2s to the atmosphere. I failed to mention, I spent the first 22 years of my life working in the petrochemical industry in Louisiana. So I come from an oil and gas background. And I agree with Chip that we've got to figure out a balance here. We've got to figure out a way to get the oil and gas companies to come to a greater realization of the impacts of climate. Right now I'm in fear that the tropical storm could turn into a Category 1 hurricane, but still we got people in Louisiana and throughout this country that's suffering from Category 5 denial when it comes to the impacts of climate. So we need to get real and start dealing with the issues. But in an effort to turn advocacy into action, I went around the world looking for what I consider to be the best-in-class renewable energy technology of which I could promote, as well as utilize the network that I had built over the years in the financial arena, as well as relationships with many of the countries of the world, and try to sort of be a clearinghouse for new technologies, for financiers, for countries that needed energy and clean water. And I looked at wind, great technologies all over the world. I looked at solar, found some great technologies all over the world, and then I found Hydrokinetic. And I looked at and vetted many different hydrokinetic technologies, and I finally found one that I felt was a perfect fit for what we could do, considering that over 1 billion people in the world right now do not have access to electricity, and as an equal number do not have access this very minute to a clean glass of water. And I felt that it was incumbent upon myself and others to try to resolve those issues. So what Zoetic does, we are engaged and are promoting a hydrokinetic technology. Our technology is a unit about the size of a small car, and we can drop, and those units are not new technologies. Countries, many technology groups have been using hydro units, but mainly out in the ocean, wave tide technology, but never applied the way with the idea that I had. And I went to the Akasambo Dam in Ghana. It's a 1.055 gigawatt dam. And I thought, what if we take those same units that are out in the ocean and drop them downstream of the dams where the flow is heavy and get a second bite at the apple? And then tie the power generated back into the grid. Therefore, we do not displace any people with new infrastructure. We do not go out and build new power lines. We do not adversely impact wildlife. We do not, thousands of people had to be displaced when they built the Okasambu Dam in Ghana, as most dams around the world. With our unit, it's plug and play. We can drop it in the water, generate the power from the flow downstream from the dam, tie back into the grid, and boost the power substantially. I signed a 100 megawatt power purchase agreement in Ghana, 20-year deal, and the units that we have, we partner with the manufacturing group out of Germany, who has been manufacturing turbines for 70 years. And now we can, where normally to provide 100 megawatts of electricity to a country, you probably have to build a new dam, which could take anywhere from 3 to 5 to 8 to 10 years and cost you anywhere from 3 to 5 to 8 to 10 billion dollars. I can give them 100 megawatts in 1 year. Simply drop it into the water, plug it up, and we're generating electricity. I sort of tried Ghana as sort of a pilot, and then I went to 12 African nations, we met with 12 presidents, President Buhari, in Nigeria, President Museveni, in Uganda, President Mahama, in Ghana, as well as the current president in Ghana. And they all love this. They said, let's do this because you don't have to displace our people. And what we're doing is that we're manufacturing them in Germany, but we assemble them on site, which means we put people in the country to work. And the way I really got hold of this, I met the chief from Ghana, who is the head chief of all the country, and I met him at a climate conference in Washington, D.C., and he walked into a hotel, and he was somewhat disappointed in that he felt that he had failed his president. He was sent by President Mahama to find an alternative to the Chinese for energy. Because what the Chinese are doing in Africa, and I've made 40 trips to Africa in the last 18 months. The Chinese are disassembling the old rusted out carbon plants, and the old rusted out coal plants in China, and getting credit for reducing their CO2. And they're loading those old plants on a ship and shipping them to Africa and rebuilding them in Africa. I call it switching seats on a Titanic. And they promised to hire African workers to work in these plants, and no African workers are working in the plants. President Mahama expelled 5,000 Chinese workers that were working in Ghana illegally, in the power plants and in the mines. So the chief needed an alternative to the Chinese, and I offered that alternative. So within 30 days, I was in Ghana. I now have MOUs in Mozambique, Lesotho, Swaziland. I have MOUs in Central America, Honduras, El Salvador. We are, thanks to my friend Lena. Where's Lena? Lena, raise your hand. She's working for us in Romania and doing great work there. So we are now going into Eastern Europe. We have deals on the table in Indonesia. I've met with folks in Singapore, have been to Taiwan, and have really traveled all over the world. But this has really taken off like a rocket, and it's given us a unique opportunity. Now, why this as opposed to solar and wind? Which, yes, I strongly believe in solar and wind. Any renewable energy, I'm all for it. But the African ministers of energy are really high on this because they want base load power. They want 24-hour power, okay? They feel that, well, wind is great, but it's intermittent. It's not 24-hour electricity. We have to store it when the wind is blowing. Solar, sun is shining, we got to store it. Rivers, 24/7. As long as the rivers are running, we're in good shape. Now, because of climate change, we've run into some challenges because you've got droughts. Right now, Africa is in its 4th year of drought. But the technology will allow us to move the units to areas where there's deeper water and greatest flow. And we can adjust accordingly very, very quickly, very, very easily. We can ship the units on a ship from the manufacturer, bring them to an assembly plant. Once the unit hits the country and goes to the assembly plant, from the time it goes into the assembly plant, into the water, plugged up, generating electricity, from the dock to generate electricity, 24 hours. Ship it in a standard shipping container. So now we're stimulating the economy of these countries. We're helping these countries to empower themselves from within. We're reducing the impacts of CO2 to the atmosphere. This summer as well, I will be in August, and I have partnered with members of the Golden State Warriors basketball team. And fortunately, not just the Golden State Warriors. We have members of Paul George with the Indiana Pacers and several other players, Utah Jazz. We will be traveling to Ghana, to Mozambique, to Lesotho, and to Swaziland in August. And we're doing basketball camps. And we're using that as a magnet to attract young people. But it's just not to play basketball. We're going to do education programs on climate. We're going to do education programs on recycling. I've gotten with a dear friend of mine and Doug, who did a great presentation on the polar regions, he and his wife, wonderful people, and are supporting us because we want to get them to connect us with the folks in the Plastics Coalition, because there's tons of plastic all over the ground in Africa. We need to figure out ways to recycle that and figure out ways to clean that up. But also I've teamed up with Johns Hopkins University, the medical center, who will join us in Africa. They're going to do 1 million tests for diabetes. And the diabetes in Africa has gone through the roof because on every corner near the villages there's a KFC. We need to try to fix that as well. So the idea of bringing basketball to Africa, we're going to multitask here. We're going to educate. We're going to get that next generation of young people in a different thought process with respect to sustainability, with respect to a clean environment, with respect to good health, with understanding the importance of clean water. And I have been visiting with the prime ministers. As I said, I met with 12, but now that I'm the new Goodwill Ambassador for all of the African nations, I have clear access to every prime minister in all 54 countries. So they will hear this message and how important it is that we get involved. But Africa, of course, as well as many of the other developing nations, suffer disproportionately when it comes to the impact of climate. They need not sit back and wait for the United States, they'll be waiting, for the United States to do the right thing. They've got to stand on their own 2 feet. So it's important for us to go back to the old saying, we're not going to go in and give them a fish, we're going to teach them how to fish. Because Africa has tremendous resources, and most of all, they got very intelligent, tremendous people that I absolutely love. But not just Africa, Central America, Honduras, El Salvador. I've had an opportunity, I've been talking to individuals here, that's why I love this ship, great networking opportunity, to go into Brazil and Central South America. So there's opportunities for this technology. We are a for-profit company. We are entertaining investment into our company. We recently teamed up with a larger company, New Generation Power out of Chicago, and it gives us greater strength as we expand throughout the world because they're into wind and they do some natural gas projects. but we're going to engage with them so we can figure out how we promote renewable energy and just operate in a clean, sustainable manner. So with that said, I've got 5 seconds, and I want to thank you all for allowing me to be here. I will take questions and answers after. I'm here all day. And again, thank you, Chip. Thank you, Sally, for the opportunity to be here. Have a great day.